This is spur of the moment. It's late at night. It's a Saturday. It's 9:24. I don't even know if I'll get anybody live, to be honest with you, but I have something that I need to talk about. I've been real quiet about it for a long time, and now it's time to not be quiet about it. So for the last two, maybe 2.5 years, I have been quietly in the background playing around with, well, maybe not so quietly, but somewhat quietly playing in the background with AI. And it started for me with content creation. Like one of the things for me is I saw this ability to take what was a weakness and make it a strength. And what I mean by that is creativity is not a weakness. Being curious is not a weakness. Wanting to educate people, not a weakness. But with being a high school dropout, my spelling, my grammar, when I was younger, I was in a typing class. I wish I would have paid attention because I'm totally like the two fingers, three fingers kind of pecking typing guy, which is also why I use Whisper Flow a lot just to talk to my computer versus needing to type. So much faster. Anyway, I'll probably talk about that in a little bit. But I was always bad at spelling and grammar, and that was like a weakness. And so when ChatGPT hit the scene, I started to look at it as like I don't need a writer, I don't need a creative. I just need the fastest typist on the planet because I can be the writer and I need a really dope editor after I get it to. So I was focused on like how do I give it my voice, how do I give it my tone, how do I give it all my stories. And so I started focusing more on context. It wasn't even called context engineering yet. No, like nobody had invented that term, but I was focused on context. Like one of the things I did was I stuck all 60 episodes of our Beyond Your Default podcast into ChatGPT, and I started asking each episode like things about, based on this episode, what is George B. Thomas's mindsets, beliefs, core values, and got to this point where I created 3 documents: 25 mindsets, 25 beliefs, and top 10 core values, and then fed that back in to the system and really paid attention to custom instructions and memory and just honed that bad boy into like an AI assisted, human powering it, AI assisted system where the writing was just super dope. Like it got really, really good, like shockingly good. And I was like, oh, cool. We've got this down. Now, over the last 60 days, maybe roughly, maybe a little bit longer than that, there has been another addition to this idea of AI assisted past just the content creation side of it. And it is nuts. And so tonight I want to show something that I have created, and I'm going to kind of talk about or talk through how I created it and like hopefully to activate some other humans. Like I have some friends who have actually like asked about how can they do what I'm doing, and I truly do want to activate folks or give them the chance to activate themselves with some of this. And so I figured, hey, it's Saturday night. I'm just chilling. I could go watch TV, but I'm just going to hop on live and I'm going to create this piece of content and talk to people and see, what can come of it. So let me go ahead and share my screen just to kind of get you going here. So if I do entire screen, and we'll grab this. So I'm going to say, shoot, and let me go ahead and bring me back on the screen so that we have me as well. This is probably like 7 days old, this website. And so before we had a George B. Thomas website, it was built on HubSpot. It was a decent website. People loved like our about page and they would come to the website and all sorts of things. But when we switched from George B. Thomas to Sidekick Strategies, the agency, honestly, the website kind of got left behind and we really weren't sure what to do with it because now we were focused on the agency and that being the place that we would send people to help them with HubSpot and marketing and sales and things like that. And so about a week ago, In less than a 48-hour period, I got like the first version of this out. And then I've been tweaking it a little bit here and there over the last 7 days to finally, it's basically to the point where I'm like, I want to talk about this and I want to share how in 7 days we've gone from site that was okay to new site. And I also want to really get nerdy, not in a bad way, but in hopefully one of my superpowers is simplifying the complex. So I want to give you three things tool wise that I've used to do what I'm about to show so that maybe you can like start to research those tools or ask questions around those tools. But I want you to realize when I started this project, it didn't start with like, hey, go build me a website. So what I did is I fired up a folder on my computer. And in that folder, I then, now I'm going to say something and I don't want to lose you, but I fired up Terminal. Now, by the way, until about 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, I didn't know how to use Terminal. I was using like Claude Code on desktop or Claude Code app or right, like something like that. But for this project, created a folder, fired up Terminal, and put Claude into the actual folder and started to build this. But the first part of this process was actually getting Claude Code to go scrape the internet and look for, and get this, I said the last 7 to 8 years of the digital footprint of George B. Thomas. And your first job is to create a context system where you understand what he speaks about, what he educates on, what podcast he's been on. And so literally sent it out to gather all of this information to then be able to turn around and say, okay, now we're going to use your information. Here are the pages that I would like to create. Let's go ahead and take a one shot and see where we can get. Now we're past a little bit of one shot, to be honest with you. But first step was create the context engine of the human who had a historical digital footprint of educating, speaking, podcasts, and get that into the folder that lived on my computer. Then the next step was start to create the pages. And then and it would get like this page and I would tweak a little bit of the text here and there. Just let me show you this kind of first page. So obviously this is about speaker, coach, HubSpot expert. By the way, if you didn't know, you can literally like put images in Terminal as well, and it'll use them. So all the images, I just basically copied the path of where it was on my computer, gave Terminal the path, and then boom, I started being able to quickly place images where I wanted them. And so one tip is if you go down this journey and you're starting to build out a site, ask for placeholder. Just like placeholder where I can put images in the future is a good kind of talking prompt, because then it helps it lay it out and know where you might want to put images or it wants to put images, and then you can replace with your own images there. But in this case, so it gave me this helping you become superhuman, which is fun because that ties right into the superhuman framework that I've been talking about at Inbound. And before that, I did interviews with Chris Carolyn about superhuman framework for HR. At Inbound, I spoke about superhuman framework for marketing. We literally have built the spiritual side of leadership.com, which is superhuman framework for faith-driven leaders. So it knows to attach this to my brand at this point. And so you can see keynotes that inspire your team, so on and so forth. We come down here, it's grabbing stats. By the way, this was fun right here. I don't know if you saw that, but like when you scroll down, I had it create this CTA, which will take you to like the podcast page for me to be a guest on your podcast if you have a podcast and you do interview style. So it's just like a little subtle nod, and I'll show you that page. But this literally was a conversation of like, here's what I said. I said, I'd like a sticky CTA that has a microphone icon, a button that goes to the /guest page and says something about need a great guest. Like I literally conversated that, and that's what this thing spit out. And I had to get rid of like this dumb pulsing shadow thing that it had. I was like, yeah, that's not going to work. But it's not in the main navigation. But on every page, they're going to get a little subtle nod that they can see and then ignore for being able to be a guest on a podcast. So you're going to see here your path forward, 3 ways to transform your world. It created these nice little boxes. I want you to notice these like micro interactions that are happening over these hovers. By default, like when I first started working with vibe coding, I wasn't getting things like that until I learned by watching a YouTube video to literally ask for micro interactions. And so I would ask Claude, like, what can we install? What repository can you research? What CSS can we use to create micro interactions on the website? And once we build a system for micro interactions, then when I started to build pages, it actually started to do that. So that's one thing, is like researching to know the things you want to ask. Like one thing that I do now when I'm vibe coding a website is I immediately say, hey, I want to start to create a design system. And now you can use something like Tailwind, CSS, and different things like that. And I have some sites that use that. But for this one, I was like, I just want to create my own design system. So let's start building this along the way and keep it where we understand and can see what we're looking at. But think about like micro expressions, and think about, how do I not only vibe code something from a just structural standpoint, but from an interactive or experience standpoint. Now, here's one thing that I'm going to pause here and say, like, one of the reasons that I think that I've been able to get as far and as fast as I have been able to with vibe coding is this historical conversation that we've talked about with T-shaped marketing. I knew a little bit about design. I knew a little bit about development. I knew a little bit about content strategy. I knew a little bit about, right, and a lot about HubSpot. A lot about HubSpot. If you're a T-shaped marketer historically, I think you're going to do really good if you try to pick up vibe coding and learn it, just because of how your brain works. You know a little bit about SEO and what to ask for to make sure that there's meta tags and meta descriptions. And because you're a T-shaped marketer, you know a little about AEO, and you know to ask for like the schema for what it is that needs to be on the page as well, right? So like think about T-shaped marketing or T-shaped business owner, and how you might leverage that into knowing a little bit of the things to be able to build the thing that you want people to see. So if we scroll down here, you're going to see like it has to be heartfelt. I mean, part of who I am is the story that I'm willing to tell, because I'm authentic and I'm willing to be vulnerable. And so, you know, right here on the front page, like from high school dropout to industry expert, which is, it's the story that I've lived. It's the life that I've had. And so here it is. And you can see too, we asked it to do a linking system. This is another thing. If you know what to ask for, after we had pretty much all the pages kind of the way that we wanted them, we said, hey, here are 3 websites, superhumanframework.com, spiritualsideofleadership.com, and sidekickstrategies.com. And we want you to look at any of the places where we lightly mention those, or we're talking about topics that would align with those. And we want you to add links to those places. Because the idea of this site, the George B. Thomas Catalyst for Growth site, is this idea of an umbrella over like these 3 pillars of things that I want to build, work on, talk about, and leverage in the future. And so if people search me as a brand, a personal brand, George B. Thomas, I want them to get here, but I want them to get here so they can go there. By the way, I'll talk about get here so they can go there in a minute when I show you the resource center. And I'm purposely using like air quotes for resource center, but you'll see why. So discover the journey, see how you'll benefit. Obviously, the journey goes to the about page. And then deep knowledge, broad vision for you, AI technology, HubSpot mastery, marketing and sales, video marketing. Notice this, 8 pillars of expertise. I'll talk about that in a minute as well, because so many people have a hard time when it comes to like, I need to come up with a content strategy. I'm going to show you where on one of my pages of my website is literally my content strategy. And so if we scroll down here, what people are saying, and this is a nice like testimonial scroller, which by the way, when I asked for that context engine, like it went and grabbed all of these testimonials and brought them in to be able to write it. And also this is like a module, but not a module, meaning I literally gave it a prompt and said, hey, I want to create a testimonial slider that uses our brand system to be able to show real world testimonials from humans we've helped. And one shot, I kid you not, one shot, this is what it spit out, which I was like, yo, this is dope. This is life changing. And of course, links to all testimonials, which we can see up here. We scroll down and it's like ready to transform, and then they can go on. Obviously, we've got our nod to who we are, Deuteronomy 31:6. But the other thing I'll say too, that I haven't really released to the world until like right now, and there might have been one other podcast I was on that I talked about this. But we used to charge for our AI GBT. And right now, if you go to the georgebthomas.com website, you can come down here and you can start a conversation with the AI George B. Thomas version for free. We've decided to make that free. So if you have questions about HubSpot, if you have questions about marketing, if you have questions about video marketing, AI technology, or let me just go to this page, which is the expertise. If you're trying to do any type of human transformation in these 8 areas, talk to my boy right here, George B. Thomas, or talk to, well, AI GBT, because I'm George B. Thomas, or talk to me. But remember, I mentioned content strategy. Here it is. Over the next however many years I'm alive and on this planet, I'll talk about AI. I'll talk about HubSpot. I'll talk about marketing. I'll talk about video. I'll talk about podcasting. I'll talk about personal growth and leadership and spiritual conversations where it makes sense to talk about spiritual conversations. But you'll see now what we built is we built 8 pillars of mastery where we actually talk about AI and technology, and you can get coaching, or HubSpot mastery, and you can learn more or get coaching, marketing, sales, video marketing. Each of these cards is one of those things that we actually talk about. This leads to our spiritualleadership.com. Anyway, crossroads of knowledge. You can see speaking and training, inbound marketing, sales enablement, philosophy behind every interaction. This is key because you have to understand what makes you you to give it to the people who need you to be you. And so whenever I talk to clients about the things that we're doing with HubSpot or marketing or creating videos, I always talk about it's human first. It's all about, or if you've ever listened to the Hubcast, it's all about the humans, right? That's a sound that we use on the Hubcast podcast. So I needed people to see like, hey, it's human first, it's value first, it's content driven, it's AI assisted, it's human powered, right? And so like I use those 5 things to help me lean in and help humans be better humans, do better business. And so then again, we see the nod to high school dropout to industry experts, because I really do want people to go to this about page. I'll show that in a hot minute. Ready to transform. We're off to the races. All right, now here's one thing I'm noticing. We've got an M dash here. So I don't really want that M dash. So I'm going to actually just grab the end of this real quick. And I'm going to say to my assistant on this page, and I'll paste that. Look for any M dashes and please remove and use other punctuation. All right, so we'll let that brew while we're talking. And by the way, that's my assistant is going to go do some work for me instead of me needing to log in and click 7 times to get to a module. And then after I click 7 times to get a module, like removing this and like adding a colon or semicolon or whatever, my assistant can go do that while we continue to talk. So next is speaking. Now this page, I about fell out of my, like I just about passed out, ladies and gentlemen. Because I'll show you something it created, and then I'll also show you, well, I'll show you something I asked for, and then I'll show you something it created based on, again, that context that I asked for at the very beginning of this. So one, all my videos are YouTube videos, but I asked it to give it a wrapper and colors that wouldn't look immediately like a YouTube video. So you can see this is the YouTube logo, but it's our branded color, and then it has these elements around it. And so it doesn't look like, not that YouTube videos are dumb, but it doesn't look like a dumb video, right? All right, by the way, it just told me that it completed its job. So let me go ahead and refresh this page for a second and see it. Well, it might not be updated yet. I probably jumped the gun because Vercel, which I'll talk about in a minute, probably has to push this. So we'll give it a minute. We'll go back to speaking. So the videos, they don't have to look like YouTube videos. They can actually be branded. And so if we go down here, you're going to see like all the videos have these like little interactive elements that we've been able to put in here. So we got Marcus Sheridan, who I worked with for 5 years, on here saying some nice things about me. Michael Stelzner from Social Media Marketing World, which I emceed, well, breakout rooms for a couple of years, and then the main stage 1 year. Love that. That was super fun and exciting. And then here's an episode of The Balance that we did, Marcus and I, when I spoke at Inbound 2016, the first year. So that's taking it back to like the Frohawk days, man. Anyway, good video though. And so then here's another one where I asked, hey, can you just create me a video slider? And again, it one-shotted this bad boy, where now you can just kind of flip through and you can watch videos or go see even more, which does take you to the channel, which, by the way, here's some friends right here. Justin, Kyle, Matt, myself. Here's some other friends here. Danielle, Nico, Chris. This was at Inbound, not last year, but I think 2 years ago already. But anyway, some nice videos you can watch here, which obviously is me speaking times I've spoke. Here's actually Social Media Marketing World, where I emceed the main stage. Again, super fun. But then this part, when it created this, explore keynote topics, I told it, I said, hey, out of the context that you found, I need to create like a section where people can see what I can actually talk about, because there's a lot of things over the last 12, 14, or if you look at it in a different way, 54 years of life that I can talk about. HubSpot, video marketing, podcast, you get the idea. But watch this, because I thought this was really cool. When you scroll down, notice this pops up, right? So it hides itself, but then it shows up. And like, if I wanted to go to podcasting, it would take me down to podcasting. If I want to go up to HubSpot, it'll take me up to HubSpot. But then this blew me away, because I had, like, here's the titles, here's the information. And I'm like, learn more. What's learn more? And then in all of these, it's like what you'll learn and who it's for. And each one of these opens up and collapses with what you'll learn and who it's for. And so literally there's 6 talks on HubSpot, 6 different talks on video marketing, 6 different talks on podcasting, AI technology, transformation, like anything that you could think that you might want me to come hit a stage or talk about on a podcast, or like, if you don't get ideas from this section to how I could help add value to your organization, to your event, to your podcast, I mean, it's all right here. And it's amazing. And then this killed me, because as soon as you come out of that section, boop, goes away. And then it shows like different events that I've actually spoken at, and then give your audience an experience they won't forget. I mean, I try to do my best. I do. Every time I hit that stage, I try to do my best. Every time I get behind the mic, I try to do my best. See what's possible. Ignite your event. Let's go over and see if our assistant actually did the work. Look, there was one here. I just noticed it's gone. If we go down to the bottom, it's gone. Imagine being able to ask your assistant something and then go do work for a client, or go do other work, or go spend time with your family, and then all of a sudden the work is done. Coaching. Again, this one was really crazy. I'll tell you a story what happened on this page. So this is the coaching page, and we've got, again, the areas of deep expertise, because if you're going to get coaching, you need to know what we can actually coach on. The sidekick approach. I love this. I giggled when I saw this, because sidekick strategies, just like it grabbed superhuman when it did the context, now sidekick approach. And so you can see sidekick mentality, real world focus, authentic connection, human first tech, celebration culture, and continuous growth. I mean, I just can't tell you how spot on to how we try to run sidekick strategies and how I try to live life that this is. If we continue to scroll down, we've got this how it works. I love this like pulsating micro interactions, and then you'll see the dot occasionally will like move across, but it's like activation meeting, custom plan, transform together, measure and iterate. Like this is literally how, you book your first session, you get the roadmap that we're going to talk about over the amount of hours that you decided you wanted to be trained. Then we start the transformation process and see where we can get you to. And so choose your path. There's literally starter, growth, and transformation paths that you can pick. But here's what's fun is like, if you click into one of these, like begin your journey, there's like stuff that you have to fill out. And the fun part about this is with my AI assistant, I literally had it where I was like, hey, could you actually create these properties, these forms, these workflows in HubSpot for each one of these packages? The only thing I had to do, ladies and gentlemen, was build the payment link. The 3 different payment links. My AI assistant, because it's hooked into HubSpot through APIs, built the rest of the stuff. And I just went in, then had to connect it and tweak it and give it the human power, do some revisions along the way. But it was 90% like flip it on and all of a sudden the systems are there. And so again, when I say, under 48 hours and now under 7 days, there's a lot of moving parts. This isn't just like a brochure website. This is a website that is like interactive and connected to HubSpot, and you can fill out forms and all sorts of fun stuff that like, it's just, it has amazed me to watch this process. If we go to testimonials again, I'm cheesy. I'm sorry, family, for sometimes being me. But anyway, this is, what humans say about working together. And so we've got our slider, we've got some stats, the fact that you're not on a journey alone. And so my dude, Chris Middleton, my friend, Mick Hunt, like all my clients really are friends, but now you can see all of these people that have nice things to say, and how we get results and how we try to do the best we can when we're helping humans. This part right here, though, I gotta tell you about this. So like, one of the things that perplexed me about the George B. Thomas website, Catalyst for Growth, was I don't create any content there, but I create a massive amount of content. Like there's the Hub Heroes podcast, the Beyond Your Default podcast. There's the Psychic Strategies blog. There's the spiritual side of leadership.com and that resource center. And so with my AI assistant, I literally asked this question. Is there a way, by the way, here's one of the things I think is a key thing if you're going to get the best out of your AI assistant and like, especially vibe coding or anything that you're going to use it for, is first thing you got to do is like, what's the old way? And then you got to ask this question, is it possible? Because I didn't know if it was or not, but I was like, okay, I got to ask, is this possible? And I said, can we build a resource center that isn't really a resource center? Let me explain. I create content on all of these different areas. Boop, 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 boop. I give it a bunch of different links and places. And I said, what I'd like is a resource center that shows those, but just goes to the actual thing. I don't want to worry about canonical, Google juice and this, that, and the other. It's an umbrella. And Claude, the only thing I want to do is I want them to be able to see all the resources we've created and be able to get to the resources that we've created so that the umbrella doesn't look like this kind of empty site of like, this dude, we don't have any proof that he knows what he's talking about. Like, where's the content he's created? Right here. And so literally, you can start to filter this out by video, podcast, articles, the topics, or even just like the source of where it's coming from, or you can search it as well. And again, it's not tied to a database. It's not tied to sanity.io. Like the content really doesn't live here. But if you click on one of these links, you would literally go to like, this is a live. I literally do like live HubSpot update podcast. This is where the AI morning show. So it's going to go to YouTube, the YouTube channel. This is going to go to spiritualsideofleadership.com. Like it even brings in our shorts again from the YouTube channels that we're doing. And so all of these resources at this point, 926 plus resources and growing for marketers, HubSpot, sales reps, whatever it is. Now we've got this dope resource center. And then this is the last page I'm going to show, because then I want to show like, how did I activate myself into this? Thanks to, by the way, I was on a podcast or a Sunday. Was it Saturday or Sunday? I don't remember. But we were on for like 3 hours and they started showing me stuff and talking about stuff and it activated me. So I'm hoping that this will actually activate you. But before I get to there, the about page. So my name is George B. Thomas. Yep, it sure is. 40 plus HubSpot certifications, 30 years of experience, 2,000 videos and podcasts, 12 years of HubSpot, helping humans with HubSpot and with business. And so I love this part here, from dropout to difference maker. Again, 1989, it shows, the world, the words that change everything. This is where my math teacher told me I'd never amount to anything, became a high school dropout. The when you're going to realize you're a blessing story, which if you've never heard that and you want to hear it, just reach out. I'll tell you, it's a super powerful story of Billings, Montana on a Crow Indian reservation. Blue Windbreaker interview with my boy Eric Jacobs, who was a creative director at a agency called Mindgrab Media that then turned into Epiphany. I think just Epiphany, if I remember correctly. It's been a lot of years, 2010. But this was where I got my first break into actually being in an agency, and was first design, then development, then some video editing at that agency as well. The HubSpot awakening in 2012, joining the sales line in 2013, finding my voice, Sidekick Strategies was born, the superhuman framework, spiritual side of leadership, and the theme and beyond. And I just love the way that comes out as like a timeline and these micro stories. And then, of course, we got to talk about the values and like if you're ready to start your journey. But human first, sidekick mentality, faith-driven, lifelong learner. It's all about growth, ladies and gentlemen. It really is. And so enough of that. I'm not going to show you the contact or the book, George. But you know what? Actually, I lied. I'm sorry. I usually try not to do that. I do have to show you this. Have a podcast and need a great guest? If you click on that, it takes you to this page, which, of course, purple hat, purple hoodie, and I even had the purple ring on matching that day. Today, it's orange. I didn't match it with red. Sorry. But I love this because I told it to be kind of creative with this. And so speaker coach, HubSpot expert, agency owner, and superhuman framework creator, powered by tacos and faith. Man, I love me some tacos. Love me some burritos. I just love beef food. Mexican food is good stuff. Anyway, start a conversation or 30 years. By the way, this right here is what you'll hear some people say, like, hey, if you're going to try to get on podcast shows, you need a one-pager. This is my version of a one-pager instead of like handing them a PDF, because I think we're quickly moving into a world where like PDFs just die. And if I can be like, hey, yeah, just go to georgebthomas.com/guest and I can create an experience, where you hover over things and they move, or you'll see what happens here. So we get past this and you can see George B. Thomas is in like nice little circle, but look at the animated like dancing ants there. By the way, this was me uploading my image to Claude and saying, hey, I want you to do something creative around this copy. And here's an image that I just like it to be in a circle, but be super creative. And, I got it's not a gold star, but I got a star and I got some marching ants. And if you hover over it, it moves, and the story inside of it is dope. So if we continue down topics, we can explore. Here's some interview topics, because if I'm sharing this with somebody who has a podcast, I want them to know that, like, what if you could become superhuman? Like, can AI amplify you without replacing you? What happens when pain becomes purpose? And so there's literally nine cards here that they can look at and be like, man, I need to get dude on my podcast. I want to talk about, why does messy content outperform polished? What does he even mean by that? If you go down further than here, look, what's the saying? The proof is in the pudding. So I asked my AI assistant if we could make a podcast slider. And so this is where it's like featured podcast appearances. So I was on Mick Unplugged, Digital Mastery. And again, you can hover over this, click, and it's going to take you right to that podcast episode. And you'll see here, perpetual traffic when I was talking to Angus Nelson, AI Explored when I was talking to Michael Stelzner, engaged video, like you'll just sprocket in gears, absolute advantage. Bella, who usually never has guests, but we had to talk about the clone and what I was doing with the clone, Mr. AI GBT down here. Talk about brand, and then the AI Hat podcast with Mike Alton. And so you can literally go listen. If you're a podcast person, you're like, man, does this dude's audio sound like crap? Does he know what he's talking about? Like, is he engaging? here, go listen to some podcasts that I've been on. And if you dig it, then you'll have me on the show. And by the way, yes, you can just arrow through them as well. And my assistant made this. Now, I used my creativity and asked for some things along the way and added the images. Like hey, for this one, use this image. For this one, use this image, that kind of thing. Didn't mean to click on the button. Sorry. So I had to add the images in. But other than that, it was like 80%, 85% one shot. Ready to use suggested questions. This was like my buddy who asked for this, Mick Hunt. He's like, dude, you got to put a one pager together. Okay, got it. He's like, make sure you have some starter questions. And so if you're like, what should I ask this dude? Which, by the way, might be just these 10 questions, but I doubt it. But you could sprinkle these into what you'd be asking me. So like a teacher told you at 17, you'd never amount to anything. How did that moment shape who you are today? Short answer, a lot. On a mission trip to Montana, someone asked you, when are you going to realize you're the blessing? How did that question change your entire approach to life or service? I'll tell you a story about Blessing Bomber someday and why I do what I do, and servant heart and value first is because it comes out of being a blessing bomber. How do you balance being a marketing expert with your deep calling to help people flourish spiritually? I've tried to be a Johnny Appleseed and dance through this for the last 12 years in the HubSpot marketing space. Anyway, Superhuman Framework. It talks about the Superhuman Framework for HR, for marketing, for sales. And then it talks about the Superhuman Framework for faith-driven leaders. And then let's make it happen, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get you on the podcast. Okay. So the reason that I wanted to do this, one, I'm super excited that this page is live. I'm super excited that you can talk to AI GPT for free. Go do that. Ask it any questions that you want around HubSpot, around marketing, around whatever. But I really did also want to share this. And so there's three things that I want to let you know that for me were the activating ingredients. One, realizing that I can use Claude Code to just talk. So there's a piece before this. I use Whisperflow to talk. I don't prompt, I conversate. I want you to understand that I don't prompt, I conversate. I'll hit Whisperflow and I'll be like, hey, we're going to work on this. I want you to be this type of assistant with these type of capabilities. By the way, if you haven't paid attention to like Claude skills, so like conversating plus Claude skills with Claude Code, lights out. Actually, conversating with skills with Claude Code and sub agents to go do multiple pieces of work. Anyway, I don't want you to feel like it's super crazy because it's simple. Like you just, once you get these pieces set up, you can literally start to have conversations based on what you know, what you want to know if it's possible, and the creativity inside of your brain. So that's piece one. Second piece was GitHub. So before 30 days ago, 60 days ago, whatever, I didn't really use GitHub, but I created a GitHub repository and I attached it and Claude together. And then also the next piece, I attached it to Vercel, because what this is, the website that we've been talking about, is it's a Next.js, don't let that scare you, project that gets hosted on Vercel. The code gets stored on GitHub. And so you're creating with Claude to push it to GitHub, and GitHub then pushes it, or you can pull it from GitHub to Vercel, or push it from, anyway, you get my point, to here. And then all of a sudden, boom, you have a live site. So if you were to take time to just think about, like, let me go watch some YouTube videos on how to use Claude Code. By the way, here's how I use it now. Literally in Terminal. It looks crazy, but it's not. Like it's just not crazy. But you can come in and you can use Claude Code, right? So you could come in here and you could be like, hey, I want to use Claude Code to like do the thing. Anyway, I don't want to give you too much. So Claude Code, YouTube videos. You do some YouTube videos on like an understanding GitHub in 20 minutes, or the basics of GitHub in 1 hour, whatever. Enough to know what commit means, push means, merge means, like things like that. and then maybe a few tutorials on what the heck Vercel is and how to like manage a Vercel and maybe environmental variables, because you'll run into that quickly. And then it's literally like allowing yourself to dream, scheme, and say, is it possible? All right. I hope this was helpful. I just wanted to jump in. I wanted to share. I'm super excited. There's other projects we've been working on. I'm probably going to share those along the way as well, but I couldn't be quiet anymore. I had to share with the world what's been happening. So, all right. Have a great rest of your night and or day or whenever you watch this. And remember to be a happy, helpful, humble human. And usually I say do some happy HubSpotting along the way. Yes to that, but maybe do some happy vibe coding. Maybe do some happy learning. Anyway, peace out and have a good night.